Welcome to the second meeting of the summer 2020 OLLI Introduction to Digital Photography class. I'm your host, Rick Hearn, and last week we talked about what we want to accomplish with the class as a whole. We want you to enhance your ability to look at the world, see things that you would like to create pictures of. Once you've seen something you'd like to create a picture of, imagine what sort of picture you'd like to take of it, and then we'll teach you to use the controls that are available on your camera to hopefully take a picture that fits what you were having in mind for the kind of picture you wanted to end up with. After you've taken a picture, you will review the picture on your phone's, your camera's display, and you might conclude that it's really pretty much what you were hoping for, and you'll go on and continue your travel or continue enjoying your day, and that's it. Maybe more often you'll find that the picture had some elements of success at what you were looking for, but not entirely. And you will think about what differed between the picture that you got and the picture that was in your mind's eye when you clicked the shutter. It might be, for example, that you wanted everything in the picture to be sharp, and everything ended up being somewhat blurry because there isn't a great deal of light and the camera shook while you were taking the picture. In that situation, the way to get a better picture might be to just not make any change, but to try it again. There's a randomness to how much the camera shakes when you take a picture. The longer the shutter opening is, the more likely you're going to get camera shake. So you certainly could take the picture again, having made some change on the camera to get a faster shutter speed. But you could simply take several more pictures and look to see which one had the least camera shake, throw away the other ones, and you invested a very small amount of time, not anything for film or developing or printing, and you got a better picture. That's one scenario, but there are many, many different scenarios for how you could compare the picture that you got to what you had in mind and potentially change something, a lens opening, a shutter speed, a sensitivity, where you're standing, where your subject's standing, wait until the sun is in a different position. There are a million things that could be changed. But by changing something, taking the picture again, comparing the second picture to the first one and seeing whether you like the second one better or worse than the first. If the second one's better, you might try going a little bit further in whatever adjustment you made from the first to the second when taking a third. If the second was worse than the first, you might try making a change in the opposite direction of whatever you did from the first to the second. But within constraints of how much time you have, you can take a number of pictures and they'll be different from each other, and hopefully one of them will be closer to what you had in mind when you started taking the pictures than what the first one was. So that was pretty much what we talked about last time. Today, we're going to do a couple of things. One, we're going to take a look at pictures that you took between last week's meeting and today. The suggestion I gave you was to take several pictures of some convenient subject of your choice in your home or yard or the park that you could walk to, whatever. And we'll share them today and talk about the differences between one picture and another and what worked for you, what didn't work for you, what conclusions you can draw about how to take pictures of that sort in the future and end up with results that you like, and maybe even end up with results that you like in a smaller number of pictures instead of having to take a whole bunch of them and go through a big learning experience. We're also going to talk some today about composition because, as I said last week, I think composition is the area with the biggest, quickest payback for being able to improve your photographs significantly for people who are taking an introductory class. I don't particularly want to put the emphasis of this class on making adjustments on the camera. We will do a certain amount of talking about that, but only in the context of looking at a particular picture and discussing what we could have done differently on that picture to get a result that was closer to what we had in mind. Okay, so how about somebody hold up their hand and we'll take a look at whatever number of pictures they want to share with us. Okay, Shen, go for it. All right, and let's see. Okay, tell us about the photo.
Okay, I just copied what Rick did last Friday. It's convenient in my yard, and I did exactly what he did. I took the same photo in different angles and also changed the camera setting a little bit just to see what picture I would like better or other people would like better. So this is one, actually let me go, okay. I can go back with the information. I think this is one with the background. You can see the color there. There are other flowers. And this is, I think is 110 millimeter using a zoom lens. So okay. And I think I use f5.6, try to make the background more blurry.
Okay.
And also tried f11 to see. So this is another one. I think this is probably f10 or f11. You can see here they're less blurry about the background.
Is everybody comfortable with what the F numbers Shen is talking about are, or should we spend a moment and clarify that?
You know, I don't do numbers.
Yeah. The first picture that Shen showed us has a much blurrier background than the second one as he moves back and forth. This one has a very blurry background. The second one has a less blurry background.
Yeah.
Right. This one was taken with a smaller lens opening, closer to a pinhole. A pinhole camera has depth of focus from touching the lens out to infinity and everything in between. This is closer to that. The other picture was taken with a larger lens opening, and in both cases, the petals of the flower are in perfect focus. That's the plane of focus. Mm-hmm. But in this picture, things that are in front of the flower, there aren't any of them, or behind the flower, are more in focus because of the smaller lens opening than in the other picture.
Gotcha.
It happens that small lens openings have large numbers, large lens openings have small numbers. I hate that, but I can't revoke the way that the notation of photography has been set up. So, important takeaway is that the two pictures were taken from pretty much the same perspective. The same things are in the pictures, but they differ importantly in that in this picture, the stuff in the background is less out of focus than in the other picture. Shen, go ahead and go back.
Yeah, I'll move forward. I changed an angle, and you can look, the background color changed. The stem of the flower shows a little bit. So personally, I like this one better. I don't know for what reason. I think this background will contrast the flower a little bit better and have your concentration there compared to the other red, yellow color. And then I forgot, I think I took a step back to have a bigger picture. You can crop it if you like. This is the same angle
Right.
with a little bit more distance.
Okay.
And then further distance, and you can see all the stem, the leaves come out clear, and the background is blurry here. You can crop it out if you want. This is a similar one. So this is the series I've taken.
Okay.
I think I'm soliciting everybody's opinion, Rick, especially your comment on from your perspective, from a professional perspective, which would be considered better picture, or all of them are lousy pictures, or but you know, I like them all. I just don't to see how other people. I think personally, I would probably like this one or this one the best.
Okay. This is a great time for me to point out that it's very easy for me to do an awful lot of sharing my opinions about, I like this better than that. Here's why. And inevitably, a lot of that will happen in the class. But if what I accomplish in 9 meetings of the class is browbeating you into taking pictures that I like, that's not really a good way to go about the class. We want for you to come out of the class able to have a higher percentage than you went in of pictures that you like. So my taste will inevitably come out in the class, but I think the best value for you guys is for you to actively talk about which one you like, of your own or of the other persons in the class, and to practice stretching your mental muscle of being articulate about more than just a gut response of why you like this more than that. To the extent that you only have a gut response, this one's okay, so Zona.
I'm sorry, I'm his wife. I can say things like that.
Zona,
So we have a small group. We can raise our hands right in the picture. Right?
Just
absolutely.
I really like all of them, Chen. And I liked the I don't know if this is the first or the second in the series. Yeah, okay. So the second one I liked better than the first one. And then can you flip over to the next one? And I'll tell you why. But this one, first of all, like Rick said, a gut reaction. But I really liked this one the best, partly because it wasn't cropped quite as tightly, but also because the darker background really made it pop. And I liked the others a lot, but when I saw this one, I went, oh yeah, that one. And I think the one more over to the, the next one in the series. I liked that one a lot too, because we could see a little bit more of the stem. But I think they're all really beautiful and nicely composed for the most part.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. That gave me more confidence here.
We have a comment from Arnold of, I like less background influence as well, and with clarity on the leaves.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that is striking about... Go ahead.
Well, I like both views. I really wouldn't be able to choose which view I like. At first, I thought the one straight on, your first photos were really good. But then the other angle that you took is also fantastic. I like both of them equally. And I think I like more of a blurred background because it gives more emphasis to the flower itself. So the ones with a blurred background, I would I would say really make the flowers stand out, and especially the drops of water on them, on the flower, which is terrific. So they're beautiful. They're really beautiful pictures.
Sue, you haven't pitched in yet?
Yeah, I'm torn between this one and the very first one. This one has a little bit of a problem that it's got that thing off in the left-hand side that keeps drawing my attention to it. If there's a way to crop that out, that would be better. The first one, though, has such a lovely use of the colored background. It isn't just a spotlight on the rose. You know that it's in a garden context.
You like the hue, the combination of hues here?
Mm-hmm. The one that's got the very dark background, that could have been done indoors almost, because you don't see the context. The last couple of them, I liked what you did with the slightly different angle, but those pink blobs in the back are a little much. So I like, basically what I'm saying is that I like the less distracting backgrounds better. And I like the colorful background. Let's see, why do I like the colorful background? Like I say, I can see the context of the flower. It's not quite so isolated. As you said, it's hard to articulate.
Well, like you said, it's hard to stage in indoor, I guess, this part.
Mm-hmm.
You can put a black velvet behind the flower that'll make the flower stand out.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay.
This is my set. If we have time, I have other sets, but I think
We'll work with the other people, and then depending on how
much.
much time there is, we can come back to you. Would you go forward one at a time, and I'll tell you which one I want you to stop on?
Okay.
Oops. There, stop. A suggestion for all of you that will help with the quality of your images. Sue touched briefly that, let's see, I don't think my pointer will show up now. At the left-hand edge of the screen, about halfway up, is a brown out of focus leaf that is just poking in, right?
Yeah.
Sue mentioned the idea of, she thought the picture might be better if you could crop it out. Putting it in broader guidance, when you take a picture, it's a good habit to scan around the edges of it when you look at it. And yeah, that's, so you cropped it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Look for things that catch your eye at the edge of the picture that are not part of the composition that you had in your mind's eye to try to tell the story. Here, the story might be that I've got a beautiful rose. It's a day with fairly soft light, not midday sun, harsh shadows. There's some condensation on some of the petals of the leaf that's real pretty. But anyhow, that leaf at the left doesn't help portray any of what I was just saying. I'm putting words into Shen's mouth of what he might have been after with the picture. But it's a good habit for you to look around the edges of your picture. And if you see things that are high contrast from what else is there, different color, very bright when everything else is dark, or very dark when everything else is light, try to get rid of things at the edges of the picture that catch your eye, that don't help say what you are hoping to say with the picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
I like the cropping that you've got. I liked it also when you had just a little bit of that left-hand leaf showing, because you still had the full leaf from the rose itself. And it wasn't quite so distracting when there was just a little bit at the edge.
Okay, good comment. Another broad kind of response, rather than to the specifics, is most of you said you liked this point of view. You also liked the head-on point of view. There is absolutely nothing wrong with coming away from shooting the subject with 2 or 3 pictures that are keepers for you. It's not like you get downgraded if more than one of the pictures that you took appeals to you. You know, it might be that all the pictures that you take of something are different from each other and all have something that you like. It might be that none of them. But it's perfectly fine for it to be somewhere between all and none. So good work, Shen. How about somebody puts their hand up and we'll move on to their pictures.
Okay.
All right, Joanne?
Okay.
Okay.
So I was actually going to start with these. So these, okay.
Excellent.
This is a lily I took in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one view. Then, I don't know. Wait a minute. Like,
Joanne,
Click the little blue back arrow in
yeah,
the corner.
now you got the arrow. There you go.
Okay.
yeah, that's what I need. So this is that same plant, but of course with more of the flowers showing.
Right.
And then this is a third view from the side. I think that's all I have. Oh, and this is another close-up. So this is very similar to the first one.
Mhm.
So those are the 4 that I took of the lily.
Okay. Talk about what you like or don't like about various of the 4.
Well, one of the problems in looking at them today when I put them up on the screen is all of this darkness at the left. So I think if I were to crop and try to get rid of some of this darkness, that might help.
Absolutely.
In that one, it seems like this one I like, but I don't know about the pavement being there. And then also I realized how ugly the wall is behind. I like the plant and I like the view of the plant I have, but some of this other stuff is not so great. But I don't think
good thing about
it out.
Yeah, a good thing about the wall and the pavement is that the lines that they put into the picture are diagonal.
That's
Most of us like diagonal lines in compositions better than we like horizontal or vertical lines. It's not always true, but it's a good beginning point to try to put your composition together with more diagonal lines and fewer horizontal and vertical lines.
Oh.
Okay.
I guess another thing, in looking at this, one good thing about these 2 things, I guess, is they're both gray, so they kind of balance each other out.
Right.
They're not as obtrusive because they're similar in color.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then this one, again, this problem of the darkness on the left is not very good. But
I think that helps the flowers stand out personally.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good. Okay. And then this, I do like close-ups of flowers. I found in shooting flowers, generally, I like one flower close up. But I wanted to try the others also.
Mhm.
This one also, the problem with the darkness at the left, maybe trying to get rid of that. Oh, that's something else. Okay. So those are my lily pictures.
Okay. How about somebody else hold their hand up and give us some feedback about one or more of these pictures? Zona.
This one I like because you can see a lot of the yellow, and if you move, and it does really pop, like Sue was talking about, a darker background does really pop. Kind of bothers me that it's all the way to the right.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that, I mean, like what Rick talks about, if you back up a little bit and take a bigger picture, you have more room to crop in a way that works for you.
Yeah.
If you move over to some of the others, I had something, the next one. For me, this one, like, because of the direct sunlight, like strong sunlight, kind of fades the flowers. And I still like it, but I liked being able to see more yellow on the other one. But I actually really like the cement wall and the cement walkway because it's almost like telling a story of nature in the city. You know, getting something beautiful even though we're surrounded by cement. And I do like the lines. I like this one a lot. I think this is my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
You're right though about the color. There's not as much yellow, which it almost makes the flowers look white. I had to look at it a second time to make sure it was the same flowers.
And that can be handled just by taking it at a different time of day.
Yeah, that's true.
While that subject has come up, let me give you your homework assignment for next week, since you just spoke it, Zona. I'm going to ask you to shoot outdoors and shoot the same subject at early in the day, middle of the day when the sun is high in the sky, and out towards sunset. I want you to get a little bit of experience with the effect that the light source for an outdoor picture, the sun is the dominant light source, has on the picture that you get. So your assignment for next week is to shoot an outdoor subject early in the day, middle of the day, late in the day. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, good idea.
And you know, what Zona said is very true, that this particular shot was taken when the sun was quite high in the sky, and the contrast in the scene is very high. The shadowed areas on the ground are pretty much lost into darkness. There's not much detail to be seen in the top left corner of the image. The petals of the flowers are light to the point of not seeing the detailed texture of the surface of the petal.
Yeah.
The fancy term is that they're blown out. They're so bright that the camera wasn't able to distinguish between quite bright and a little less bright and a little more bright in neighboring places on the portions of the petal that are in direct sun. And it just looks textureless in those bright areas. And that bothers most viewers. You could take the shot again with less exposure, you know, a faster shutter speed or a smaller lens opening or a lower sensitivity or some combination of those things, and you would stop blowing out the petals of the leaves. But because it's a very, very high contrast scene, given where the sun was at that time of day. If you do make a darker exposure, the areas that are dark in this image are going to be even darker in the lesser exposure. So in this case, a lot of subjects are not best photographed with the sun really, really high in the sky on a cloudless day. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
One other suggestion. Yes, go ahead, Sue.
Sorry, I'm still hung up on your assignment for next week. One of the things that I noticed was that if I waited for the sun to, or for the subject to be in shadow, that made a big difference in things. So I'm going to try to do that as well as morning, noon, and night.
Yeah, you can broaden the homework assignment to say not just shoot the same thing early in the morning, late in the afternoon, middle of the day, but the same thing with the light having changed.
Okay. Okay. Sorry to distract. Back to
Another
to
piece
Joanne's pictures.
of general suggestion is, am I the only one who is distracted by the timestamp that we see
No,
in the
I
picture?
don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Your cameras are all going to keep track of the date and time the picture was taken at in the supporting information. It's called extra information, EXIF. And it's great to be able to bring that stuff up with an information about or whatever. But turning on the feature on the camera where it overlays the date and time into the actual image data is a displeasing distraction from the image. So your camera has a menu setting to enable or disable date stamp or time stamp. Find it in the menu. I suggest turning it off, and
Okay.
I think you'll like your pictures better without it. Okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Murphy's Law says that it's always going to be right in front of the focal points of the picture, because I like the balance. The balance of the two flowers is nice. If we could see them both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shen, I don't think you've had any opportunity to comment on Joanne's set.
And you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. For this picture, I actually like the left lower corner, the little pavement with the shadow on it. I think that's a more artistic than the brick wall with a straight line compare. And I think the other pictures, I also like the single picture. Personally, I actually think the dark portion of the picture will bring out the flower and not necessarily be a bad thing.
Oh,
Okay.
So, excuse me. So you wouldn't change this? You wouldn't do anything to this left hand side?
I could crop a little bit off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I think actually it leads to the flower. That's just how I feel. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Shen's comment is valid. It's not like you have to be able to see a bunch of detail in every portion of the image. The dark stuff provides balance with the bright stuff. But this image, for example, has a big advantage over the one we looked at a moment ago, that there's nothing lost into featureless overexposure here. The main framing issue with this one is what Zona pointed out, that the tips of the petals are uncomfortably close to the top edge and the right edge of the image. You feel like the flower's been put in jail, is a way of putting it. Everything needs a little bit of breathing room, is the phrase that's often used. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Good stuff.
The ones where you pulled back from the flowers and you could see the context.
Oops.
Yeah.
Something like this.
I keep wanting to pick off those dead flowers.
Sorry.
Hey,
Which-
Sue, Arnold has a comment.
Oh, you're right.
Yes.
Says,
Arnold says in the chat, I like the single flower. The clarity of the flower is better. Very reasonable comment. This is a situation where there's more than one story to tell from the flowers. Is the single flower shot good and the multi-flower shot bad, or vice versa? No. They're different from each other. They tell different stories. It's perfectly reasonable to tell multiple variations of the story with a given subject.
Yeah. My comment about wanting to pick off the dead flowers, one flip side of that is it wants me to engage in the picture. And as Rick says, if you were telling the story of your daylilies, you might have had an earlier one where that guy on the lower left was a beautiful bloom, and now he's passing his prime. So it all depends on the story that you want to tell.
Mhm. Yeah.
One of the things that several of you have kind of touched on that's a big element of how I try to put together pictures is several of you have commented that the pictures where the pavement or the wall are part of the composition have a contrast between the color, brightness, texture, size, shape, darkness or lightness of those elements in the picture against other elements in the picture. And I personally like images that contrast things to each other. You know, the tight shot of a single bloom is a great way to admire nature's ability to craft gorgeous flower blossoms. The wider shot that shows some of the context that the flower is in have the opportunity to have more things being put together in a context. Neither's better or worse, but in general, I go for a picture that people want to look at longer. You know, if you go, oh, that's a pretty flower, next, then I don't feel as good as if you look at the picture and say, can I have a couple minutes to check this out? I really want to think more about this. So, you know, you've heard me use the vocabulary that a picture is trying to tell a story. It's more fun to read a richer story, and that's true with a picture as well. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Anybody else want to comment on Joanne's set? All right. Zona, do you have something you'd like to share
I
with us?
do. Mine won't be as smooth because, oops. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to show the difference in these two shots. I took them from pretty much the same angle. So there's that one. Okay. So that was the first one, and that was the second one. And like I said, I was just trying to do a contrast between dry and wet.
Mhm.
And then this was just a step back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And then that was a little closer in a slightly different angle. And then this one, I was deliberately trying to take one that I thought wasn't composed very well, just to kind of show a contrast between one that I felt was composed better.
That's great. I mean, you know, I think it's a wonderful way to learn to say, I think if I changed this, things would get worse. And just quickly take the shot and take a look at the result and either pat yourself on the back and say, I was right, it did get worse, or have the reaction of, oh, yeah, that aspect got worse, but something else that I like came into it. Can I do some third thing that will hang on to the thing that I stumbled upon that I liked, but not emphasize the thing that I didn't like?
I have to admit that I had almost no time, and I thought the class was yesterday, so I was rushing around to hurry up and get them done.
Oops.
And I deliberately didn't do any editing like Joanne was talking about. Did you want to edit or not edit? I deliberately didn't edit because I wanted to hear what people's impressions were just as the raw photo, but I would definitely crop this one a little bit to make the rose a little bit more in the center. I do like the shadows, like the bright on part and then dark here. I like that.
Just to support you could crop it afterwards. The way you're presenting the pictures, we see some of that extra information presented to the right of the picture. And this shows that the camera that you used is about 14 million pixels. It's got 4,600 across by 3,400 high. You only need about 200 or 300 pixels per inch of the size that you view it to present as much detail as your eye can pick out. So let's say we make an 8 by 10 inch print of this. You need 1600 by 2000 or 3 megapixels to maybe 4 megapixels. And your camera is capturing about 14 or 15 megapixels. So you have about 4 or 5 times more pixels than you need to make an 8 by 10 print with. So you can do a lot of cropping.
It'll come out nicely because I have so many megapixels.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
That's all I was trying to get out.
Yeah.
Most of you are shooting with cameras that have 10 to 20 megapixels, and you can afford to do a fair amount of cropping on a sharply focused image and still have plenty of detail show in the cropped image.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to bring out.
Yeah, that's what I
have a question, Rick.
Go ahead.
You're talking about megapixels. Here it shows megabytes. They're different, and there's a relationship between the number of bytes and pixels?
Yeah, good question. So for example, with this image, in the dimensions line, it shows 4,608 by 3,456. Multiply that out and it comes out to about 14 or 15 million, something like that. So that's 14 or 15 megapixels. Up higher than that, above the word information, it has the thumbnail and 6 and JPEG image and 3.8 megabytes.
Right.
The capital B means it's megabytes rather than megabits. So we had about 15 megapixels bytes. So each pixel averaged about a quarter of a byte or a couple bits. A byte is 8 bits. This is not a computer class, but when we talk about how big is an image, we can talk in pixels, we can talk in bytes. The reason that the size in bytes isn't simply how many bits per pixel did the camera capture times the number of pixels divided by 8 bits per byte, that the Joint Photographic Experts Group image format, which is JPEG or JPEG, compresses the image. So for example, the blue sky area in the upper right corner will have been compressed quite a bit because there are lots of pixels adjacent to each other that are the same shade of blue. And the compression can simply say for a given row, the next 500 pixels are all a 75% intensity blue. They're just like each other. It's compressible. So some images will compress down to a smaller size because there is more repetition in the image. Some images that have a great deal of detail in them won't compress as much. So you could have two pictures that were both taken at this 4600 whatever by 3400 whatever pixel resolution that would be slightly different sizes in megabytes because of differences in compressibility. For the most part, the image size in megabytes is only a concern with how many pictures can I fit on my camera card. Let's say for the sake of discussion that you have a 32 gigabyte camera card. That's a fairly ordinary size card for people to be using today. And let's round this 3.8 megabytes to 4 megabytes per image. So a gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. So you could fit about 8,000 pictures that were 4 megabytes apiece onto a 32 gigabyte card. Pretty cool compared to even the 72 pictures on the Olympus half-frame roll of film. It's part of what I love about digital photography, but Sue also pointed out last week that the downside is it doesn't take as long to sort through 72 pictures as it does 4,000. So there are pluses and minuses. But anyhow, that's the difference between bytes and pixels.
Thank you, Rick.
Sorry for the geekiness there. Okay, more comments from the group about Zona's images?
Okay.
All right. Here, the contrast that I was talking about includes some blue sky, pink blossom, green leaves, the gray painted wrought iron fence. There's a good variety of color in here. And again, as the junkie for variety in my images, that appeals to me. But it might be that, you know, an image that has only two colors, but really interesting arrangement of them to each other is powerful for you. Just be aware that when you make a picture, you can make a complicated picture, you can make a simple picture. The complexity or the simplicity can be in how many things are in it, in how many shades there are from very bright to very dark, in how many textures there are from really, really hard and smooth to really soft and fuzzy. All these different dimensions of variety can come into pictures.
I have a comment.
Go.
Yeah, a comment about this one. I'm looking at it and I like your angles in this one. As I look at it more, I see all different angles. The rose is diagonal and then the tree has different angles, and that other plant is kind of angling away from the rose, and that's really good. I didn't notice it at first, but I look at it now and I think it's very interesting in that way to see so many different angles of things. And the fence also. Everything it's an interesting composition.
Thank you.
Sue, you're shaking your head. Speak.
This one doesn't do it for me. It's just too busy. I keep feeling bad for the flower on the right that apparently got cut off. Pruned. I just there's just too much going on here. I'm
Heavily
Rick may be a junkie for complexity. I'm a junkie for simplicity.
Yeah.
Sue and I recently celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary, and my primary reaction to that is that so far I haven't managed to get deadheaded by her, but the possibility is always present.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we have
I would
21
pick one of
left.
these instead,
Mhm.
just because it's a little less
Busy.
complicated.
Okay.
So you could imagine, like Shen's first couple of pictures, this picture has pretty sharp detail in all the foliage. You know, the only thing in this picture that's strikingly reasonably out of focus is the bottom portion of the wrought iron fence. You could take another picture from the same perspective of the same blossom with a larger lens opening that would make the background foliage more blurry, kind of akin to the way Shen's first picture was versus his second. And you might like it better or worse, but it would be an interesting alternative to consider.
And that's what I don't know how to do. It's just a point and shoot. That's one reason I want an SLR.
Yeah, it's a good time to mention the horses for courses thing again. Cameras that are really small, have small lenses and small sensors, you will usually get a picture that has a lot of stuff in focus, like this picture. It's very, very hard with, say, your smartphone camera to get a picture that has the stuff in the background very far blurred, out of focus. And the difficulty is that real small sensor cameras either have no adjustability of the lens opening or very, very limited ability to adjust the lens opening. That's why that portrait mode trick that I showed you of the rose in my garden last week makes camera phones less objectionable than they were before that portrait mode feature came along. It doesn't do a perfect job of figuring out what's the foreground, what's the background, and blurring the background, but it does a fair job. Okay? But you're right. If you get a interchangeable lens camera with a bigger sensor, with bigger lenses, then you can adjust the lens opening and have the creative choice of how much other than the blossom is in sharp focus. Okay, great. Let's see.
I didn't do roses, I did hibiscuses. And this is the context picture. I won't talk, I'll just go through. Oops, that one wasn't supposed to be part of it. But it came next, and I kind of do like it if I could just blur the background a little bit more.
Okay, now that you've shown us all of them, Sue, why don't you talk some?
Okay. This one was primarily for context. I cropped it a little bit to make a stronger diagonal of the two main flowers. And you can see that the one on the left is in fairly deep shadow. The one on the right is the one that I spotlight from now on. And he's in bright sun. Face on, tight. I cropped this. I like it to be so focused in. I wish the petals didn't have little smudges on them. But like I said, I would have picked out the dead flowers too. This was trying to get some backlighting on the thing. One of the things about flowers and leaves is that the petals, and for that matter, the leaves, are translucent. So if you can get them backlit, you get some interesting effects. That's, I not a crop. It's just a moved in tighter. I think it's not cropped. From a slightly different angle, but the same background. Now I've got him against the blue of the sky, still working with the translucence of the leaves over here in the corner, as well as the petals. Shifted my feet so that I'm now looking at the other side of him. And there's a companion picture for this one. I pulled a branch out of the way to get this view. There's a companion picture where I didn't get the branch quite out of the way, and there's a leaf blocking him. And this, I think, is one of my favorites, with the strong diagonal. It's cropped with the strong diagonal and the unusual perspective on it. Right, that's the end.
Okay. Anybody got any suggestions for Sue? Zona, you're speaking, but you're muted.
I said Arnold has a comment.
Ah. Okay. He comments, I love the backlit first one, makes the flower grow.
Probably glow.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm.
Yeah, I particularly like the one with the blue sky in the background there. Sorry, Sue.
That one.
Yeah, because it really, really shows off the three-dimensional structure of the petals. As Sue said, one of the features of vegetation is that leaves are translucent. And when you put the light source behind a translucent subject, the light can shine through it. And that makes this an unusual picture of a hibiscus blossom. And at least for me, wow, I want to study just how those leaves are organized. Go ahead, Joanne.
I really liked your second one where you pulled in really tight and showed the the close up of the flower. I think it was your second. Yeah, this one. To me, this is very artistic. It doesn't necessarily show your garden at its best, or if you were trying to show all your hibiscus, but almost as a painting. I think it's really nice in that way, the detail in the center, and it just really draws your attention. I think it's very, very, very interesting, very artistic. And I do.
Yeah,
really
if you like the paintings of Georgia O'Keeffe, this one has a Georgia O'Keeffe quality.
Yeah.
True. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zona, you had your hand up?
I was going to say Georgia O'Keeffe. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like others too. Can you scroll through?
Sure.
I don't know if Joanne
That's
was
number one,
either.
which doesn't do much for me.
No, it's not interesting. And I take a lot of photos that I look at and I think, it has pretty colors and things, but it just doesn't strike me as interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
There's number two,
keep going.
3,
Yeah, I love that one. It's startling. I do like
4.
the backlit. I think that's really pretty and it's high contrast, so I like that. It's nicely framed. But I like that one better.
Let's see, I don't think those are the same picture. No, they are not.
No, but I like, between those two photos, I like this one better because it's, I guess I really like things in my face. Close up.
Okay, there's number 6.
And I like
7,
that backlit on that.
8.
I think that one's interesting, sort of drooping down. I just it kind of drew my eye to it. Like it had visual interest for me. Plus, you know, the background, it really makes it pop.
But as Rick had pointed out, I didn't look at the
Mhm.
edges. There's this guy up in the corner
Yeah,
that is
it's a little
pulling
distracting.
my eye away from it.
I didn't notice it at all until you pointed it out. Yeah. I think
And there's
I was
the,
done, and I'm not sure Joanne was done. I think I hijacked it from her.
No, I was finished. It's
You were
okay.
done? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Shen, have you had anything to say
Oops.
about those?
sorry, wrong.
Yeah,
What'd I do?
like Zona. I think I like the blue sky.
Sorry. I lost my, there we go. Well, this isn't the same, but it'll do.
Yeah, I think I like if you ask me to pick, I like the 5th and the 8th the best.
Interesting.
One of the things that you can see here, guys, is that each of you has...
There's the guy with the extra leaf.
Yeah.
Each of you has different opinions about what appeals. And that's
Mm-hmm.
entirely appropriate. You know, it's not really about everybody has to come around to the same taste. It's about coming to recognize your own taste and learning what tips and tricks there are for creating pictures that do work for your taste. Okay, good stuff, Sue. Good stuff.
I don't know how to get back to the whole group, but that's okay.
Yeah. So when you guys shoot in different light for next week's assignment, I encourage you to don't just do a shot early in the day, middle of the day, late in the day. Try to accomplish some of the sorts of stuff that Sue did there with arranging where you are relative to the subject and where the sun is, so that the sun is behind you, behind the subject, at the left, at the right. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see.
You got 10 minutes
Okay.
until the official end of the class.
Yeah. Anybody else want to say anything more about the pictures that we showed from you today? I'm very pleased with how you guys did. You took the spirit of the homework assignment and did a great job with it. So thank you. Let's see. I'm going to show you a little bit of stuff about composition from the PowerPoint set that I have for the class. So, okay, so I've got the section on composition. Let's just look a little. All right, we'll go through these 10 tips later, but this just mentions that moving in close and getting things out of the middle are important elements of composition. So these pictures, by the way, are from the person who taught the class before me, Bob Newcomb. Bob is actually the person in the right-hand picture here. These are both in similar Southwestern context. The image on the right illustrates, for landscape photography, kind of 2/3 of what I aim for in compositions, which is to have something interesting close to you, something interesting very far away, and something interesting in between. You could argue that the dome formation that is partway to the furthest formations is the something in the middle of that image. But landscape photography, where you just show far away stuff, depending on how beautiful the faraway stuff is, the picture may be pleasing, but when you bring near, middle, and far into the composition, it's more likely to hold your eye longer. Okay. All right. Perspective. All right. Much of the trick of getting a photograph that ends up saying the kinds of things you were hoping to say has to do with seeing a three-dimensional world and creating a two-dimensional picture. As you get practice, you will have more of a sense of what your picture is going to look like in 2 dimensions before you snap the shutter button. That's part of the experience accumulating. All right. You can choose a wide angle for a landscape composition that includes a lot of stuff. You can choose a telephoto that brings some faraway detail to fill the picture. Are either of those right or wrong? No, they're just different choices. But the angle of view that you get for your picture is one of the most important decisions you make about what picture you're going to take of what's in front of you. Wide angle, normal, distant, telephoto that's been blown up. All of those are legitimate choices to make, but you can get very different pictures by making different choices. This could be a matter of turning the zoom on a camera that has a zoom, or it could be a matter of changing to a different lens on an interchangeable lens camera, or it could be shooting with your phone and choosing to crop the image because you don't have a zoom lens on the phone. Okay. When you shoot with a telephoto long lens, you make things seem closer together. The perspective changes. You don't get the same effect shooting 4 times as far away with 4 times as much magnification as you do shooting where you are with only 1 time magnification. The difference is not in the subject. The subject will occupy the same area of the picture in those 2 scenarios. The difference is how much background there is. If you are close to the thing and filling much of the picture with your subject, you're using a wide angle of view, and you'll see a lot of stuff in the background. If you move further from your subject and zoom in to fill the picture with the subject again, there's a much smaller amount of background area in the picture. They're both legitimate compositions, but it makes all the difference in the world on perspective when you move your feet as opposed to turning the zoom ring on the camera. Okay, so here we're going to see several pictures taken from the same place, either changing lenses or turning the zoom ring. This is a portrait lens. It's about twice as small an angle of view as your native eye would have. Okay, this is a wide angle lens. You see that the mountain looks, go back, yeah. The mountain looks bigger here and smaller here. You see much more of the foreground brush in this picture than you do in that picture. Is either one by its nature better or worse? No, they're just different. Okay, going on. Here is a crop from the second picture. Now, if I compare this picture to the first one, bang, bang. Come on, Lord me. There versus those 2 pictures have pretty much the same angle of view. This one was the other picture cropped. Now, there's little less detail in this picture because the camera captured some number of pixels in the full image, and when you crop it, you threw away some fraction of those pixels. But can you really see much difference in detail between this and this? Maybe a little bit. You know, look at the details of the snow on the face of the mountain in the distance. This is a little more detailed than that guy. Okay. Yep. This just goes and makes the point I just made. Actually, what's different between these two more than detail is darkness. The top one is darker. Okay. You have the freedom to move yourself when you take the picture. Same subject in the distance, but now we've got the gnarly driftwood and bush in the foreground. Now, same lens, but you moved leftward here relative to here. Okay? You might like this one better, you might like this one better, but they are distinctly different pictures. Do you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by the way, the what's good and what's bad here comments are Bob's comments, and I might agree with him or not. This has been cropped to the shape that the prints that you all had printed from your pictures for years, 4 inches by 6 inches. Okay, this has been cropped to be a more rectangular shape. Even more tightly cropped. This was done to be a panorama. All taken, I think, from the same place, same subject. Many cases, just different crops of the same image, but very different results. Okay. This has a formal quality to it because the subject is right in the middle. Bob happens to feel this doesn't have the same impact, but you see he moved the subject a little ways away from the center. Okay, here. All right, composition here, you had to make a decision where to place the horizon. And Bob, in this case, put the horizon roughly a third of the way up from the bottom of the picture. And what he did was that allowed him to have that whole very dramatic cloud included in the image. And the composition suggests that you should look at the cloud first and look at the ocean later. If the horizon was high in the picture, then that would be an implicit suggestion that you look at the near stuff first and the sky later. Okay. Here again, that transition from the mountains to the sky, where you put it mattered. Also, in this case, he's got framing. The bit of branch in the top right corner provides kind of an implied frame to the picture. Okay. General suggestion is put the subject a third of the way into the picture, either from the left, from the right, from the top, from the bottom. Could be both top and left. Lots of alternatives here. So there. Okay. The visual mass of the picture is a third of the way from the right-hand side. Okay. So here, part of what's very noticeable about his composition is that he's placed his wife way to the right of center of the image. It gives the opportunity for you to see her and see where they were. Okay. All right. This is a pretty picture from Tahiti, I think. Now, Bob's imposed a grid on it here, and you can see that the motorboat in the foreground is right on the rule of thirds intersection point, a third of the way from the right, a third of the way from the bottom. The horizon is a third of the way down from the top. You didn't put any of the elements right in the center of the image. So here again, the water in the foreground is a smaller portion of the image. It's not half of it. Okay. Put up the grid, and you can see that a bunch of the important things in the image are near the grid intersection points. Okay. Lots of diagonalnesses that contribute to this, plus also the arc of the bottom right rows of lounging chairs. Okay. Again, objects of interest tend to be not at the center. You notice here that this isn't even thirds the way he's put the grid up here. The rule of thirds is not an exact thing. It's just in the middle versus significantly away from the middle. Gives two different feelings.
The slide said something about the golden ratio.
Yeah, right. Okay. Again, things are arranged not on center. The fact that this is a different proportion with the golden ratio, not a huge difference from the rule of thirds. Okay. Here, they are not on center. They're somewhat to the right of center. Between this image and this image, this one just feels like a better composition to me. You might have a different reaction. Perception of motion. This was what we talked about a little the last time. Motion is away from you, out of the image, and this. It's kind of creates a tension that it is that way. He's annotated with the implied motion. Okay. So when you put it in the middle, it just doesn't have the same interest as when you put it to the side. And because the implied motion is from right to left, compositionally it feels right for the boat to be to the right of center. It's moving into the middle of the picture. He says the vertical and horizontal lines give calmness and stability, etc. Okay. I'll interject one piece of commentary on landscape photography. This is pretty. This is more dramatic. And the difference is the weather. Landscape photography, it's very hard to take a picture of the Grand Canyon from the visitor center and take a picture that has a different composition than everybody else. But the particular collection of clouds in the sky makes one photograph of the Grand Canyon unique versus the others. So when you're doing landscape photography, be very aware of what the sky looks like. Perfect blue skies, which you might choose for your vacation travels, don't often make the most interesting landscape photographs. Okay, well, I'm running overtime, so let's go ahead and cut it off there. Did you guys find that stuff on composition to your appeal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's pretty good. We can take a little more time to draw the attention to the different lines.
Okay. I will try each week to do a mixture of looking at your pictures from the homework assignments and maybe some of mine that relate to them, and presenting more formal learning sections from the PowerPoint or videos from the internet. Hopefully that mixture will keep it more interesting for everybody. Okay? All right. Any
Thanks a lot.
final questions or comments? Again, the homework assignment for next time is to shoot an outdoor subject, the same subject, manipulating lighting, either by shooting early in the day, middle of the day, late in the day, or shooting with the sun behind you, in front of you, to the left side, to the right side. Any games with getting different light on the subject to start to learn how the light source, where it is, what kind of light it is, influences the picture you end up with. Okay, we'll plan on seeing you all again next Friday at 10 a.m. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody. See you next
Thank
week.
you.